Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping into the sources surrounding the life and teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, obviously a huge figure in history.
Yeah, incredibly influential.
Yeah.
Our mission here isn't just biography, though. We want to give you a kind of shortcut to the core ideas he brought forward. We're really focusing on that central message, mercy, justice, building community, the things that laid the groundwork for an ethical society. Why were these ideas so, revolutionary?
That's a great way to put it. When you look at the sources, you're analyzing a social reformer, really, as much as a religious messenger. His vision, it seems, was fundamentally about promoting these, let's call them universal values, replacing the chaos of the time with a more functional ethical structure, one built on, accountability and basic human dignity.
Okay, so to grasp how big a change that was, we need to set the scene. We're starting in Mecca, around 570 CE. This wasn't exactly a calm, orderly place, was it? Oh, not at all. Far from it. Historians often refer to this time in Arabia as the Age of Ignorance, Jahiliyyah. It was very decentralized, highly fractured. You had shifting tribal loyalties dictating everything, not really law. If you didn't have a strong clan backing you, your life wasn't worth much. We see widespread idolatry, constant raiding between tribes, and really stark social and economic inequality. Women, orphans, the poor, they were often exploited. It was a tough environment.
Right. And into this world, he's born, orphaned young, raised by his grandfather and then his uncle. But what really jumps out from the sources, even about his early life, is his focus on his character before any divine message.
That's absolutely critical. His integrity, his honesty, it was known publicly long before prophethood. Think about Mecca. It was a major trading hub, lots of money changing hands, lots of opportunities for, dishonesty.
High stakes.
Very high stakes. And in that environment, there was a real need for someone neutral, someone trustworthy.
And he became that person.
He did. The sources are quite consistent on this. The people of Mecca, even those who later fiercely opposed him, they gave him a specific title, Al-Amin.
Al-Amin, meaning?
The trustworthy. And this wasn't just, a nice nickname. It was almost a practical designation, economically and socially. People would entrust their valuables to him. They'd ask him to mediate their disputes because they knew his judgment was fair, his word was reliable, even when tribal loyalties were causing chaos all around.
It sounds like he was a kind of necessary anchor in a pretty unstable society. Okay, let's shift gears then to the moment that really changes everything. He's 40 years old.
Right, meditating in the cave of Hira, outside Mecca. This is when the sources say he received the first revelation through the angel Gabriel.
And this marks the beginning of, a 23-year mission?
Exactly. A mission described as guiding humanity towards this new way of life, structured, just, ethical. And the earliest sources, they really lay out three foundational pillars, ideas that fundamentally challenged everything the Meccan society was built on.
Okay, what are those core concepts? Let's break them down.
Well, first, and perhaps the most philosophically profound, is the oneness of God, Tawhid. Now, this wasn't just a theological point. It was a complete societal reset button. It directly attacked the polytheism, the idol worship that propped up the existing tribal hierarchy.
How so?
Because specific idols were often linked to specific powerful tribes. By saying there's only one God for everyone, it basically dissolved the religious justification for that tribal privilege. It leveled the spiritual playing field.
Interesting. Okay, what's the second pillar?
The second, and maybe the most socially explosive at the time, was radical equality. The message was crystal clear. No superiority based on race, wealth, or social status. Everyone is equal in the eyes of the one creator.
Wow. I mean, in a society built entirely on bloodlines, tribal honor, inherited status, that sounds almost impossible to implement. How did he even begin to suggest dismantling that without, immediate, total chaos?
Oh, well, that's where the third pillar comes in. It provides the how. It's ethics, the call for compassion, for justice, for treating every single person with fairness and dignity. It provided the practical framework. See, once the belief system, Tawhid, established that everyone's equally accountable to God.
Then the social system had to reflect that.
Exactly. Then the social system, built on equality and ethics, demanded that people treat each other equally. It wasn't just a nice idea. It was like the logical requirement of the theology. It formed the bedrock of this new community he was building.
That connection faith directly informing social justice, that's really powerful. Let's spend a bit more time on how those ethics were applied, because these seem to be the concepts that really lasted.
Absolutely, and you have to start with mercy.
Yeah.
It's paramount in the sources. He's often referred to by the specific title, Ramaldo lil Alamin.
Which means?
A mercy to all the worlds, or a mercy to all beings. It signifies universal compassion.
Okay, but how does a title like that translate into, say, actual practice or even law, especially in such a violent time?
Right. The clearest example, the one historians always point to, is the conquest of Mecca. This is the moment of his ultimate political triumph. He returns to the very city that had persecuted him, boycotted his clan, waged war against his followers for years.
Decades, really.
Decades, yes. By all the rules of 7th century warfare, everyone expected retaliation, mass punishment, seizing property, settling scores. That was the norm.
Sure.
Instead, he enters Mecca, gathers the leaders who have fought him, and basically grants a general amnesty.
Yeah.
Forgiveness.
To his staunchest enemies.
To almost everyone.
Yeah.
This single act, choosing forgiveness, choosing empathy over vengeance, even when he had the absolute upper hand. It wasn't just personal. It set a massive political and legal precedent. Mercy became institutionalized right then and there.
That's a profound statement. Okay, so mercy is central. But you mentioned it needs to be balanced with justice. We touched on it as a pillar, but how is it applied, especially when powerful people were involved? That's always the test, isn't it?
It is. And the sources emphasize justice as a non-negotiable universal obligation. There are many recorded sayings, hadith, warning against any kind of favoritism. He explicitly said, look, communities before you were destroyed because they were stripped with the poor and weak when they broke the law, but lenient with the rich and powerful.
Ah, the double standard.
Exactly. He taught that justice had to be completely blind. Applied equally whether the person demanding justice was, say, an enemy, or whether the accused was a close relative, even his own daughter, famously. Status, wealth, personal connections, none of that was supposed to matter before the law.
That insistence on accountability, regardless of who you are, that's what gives the system teeth, I suppose. Okay, shifting slightly to how the society was governed day to day, the sources talk a lot about charity and generosity. This wasn't just about encouraging individual kindness, was it? It seems like it became part of the actual structure of the society.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a key point showing the systematic approach. He introduced two main forms of charity. First, there's zakat, which is obligatory charity. It's essentially a required annual payment calculated as a percentage of a person's accumulated wealth.
So it functions almost like a mandatory tax specifically for social welfare.
Precisely. Its purpose is explicitly defined in the Qur'an: to care for the poor, the needy, those in debt, to free captives, help travelers. It's basically an institutionalized social safety net. It makes the well-being of the vulnerable a collective, non-negotiable responsibility of the state, funded by the community's wealth.
Okay, that's zakat. What was the other form?
Then there's sadaqah. This is voluntary charity. Any act of kindness, generosity, helping others, given freely above and beyond the required zakat. So you have this two-pronged approach: a mandated system ensuring basic needs are met, and encouragement for ongoing personal generosity and compassion. It embeds caring for the less fortunate right into the economic fabric.
That's quite sophisticated. We should also touch on knowledge and wisdom. I know our audience is interested in the intellectual aspects, too.
Definitely. The emphasis on seeking knowledge is another really striking feature. The famous saying attributed to him, "Seeking knowledge is a duty upon every Muslim, male and female," that was revolutionary for its time and place.
Empowering for women, too, specifically mentioning them.
Absolutely. And this emphasis is often credited with helping to spark the later flourishing of intellectual and scientific pursuits in Islamic civilization. Learning itself was framed as a form of worship, a way to understand God's creation, and a contribution to society.
So we've seen mercy, justice, structured charity, the pursuit of knowledge. But maybe the most concrete example of this whole ethical vision and action was the society he actually built when he migrated from Mecca to Medina.
Yes, the Medina community. This is often seen as the practical laboratory for his teachings. And what emerged there, often governed by what some historians call the Constitution of Medina, or the Medina Charter, was really unprecedented for the Arabian Peninsula.
What was so groundbreaking about it? It wasn't just a city for Muslims, right?
No, not at all. That's the key. It was explicitly a pluralistic community. You had the Muslim immigrants from Mecca, the Muslims native to Medina, several large Jewish tribes, and potentially other pagan groups, all living together under one political framework.
So how did this constitution work?
Well, it essentially defined citizenship based on living in Medina and agreeing to the pact, not just shared faith or tribal bloodline. It guaranteed security for individuals, security of property. Crucially, it guaranteed freedom of religion for the different communities, particularly the Jewish tribes.
Freedom of religion, explicitly.
Yeah. It outlined mutual rights and responsibilities. For instance, all signatory groups were considered one community, an ummah, in terms of mutual defense against external threats, while maintaining their internal religious autonomy. It was arguably one of the earliest examples of a written social contract establishing rights and duties for diverse groups within a single state. It really shows the practical application of trying to build a just society for different peoples.
So if we pull back and look at the whole picture, the context of chaos, the core message focusing on one God and human equality, then this ethical framework built on mercy and impartial justice, structured social welfare, valuing knowledge, and finally putting it all into practice in a diverse, multi-religious state like Medina. The sources really seem to paint a consistent picture, a life focused on fundamentally restructuring society around principles of human dignity and fairness.
He passed away in 632 CE. But you're right, the influence is undeniable. Over 1,400 years later, his teachings, primarily preserved in the Qur'an, which Muslims believe to be the literal word of God revealed to him, and the Hadith, the collected accounts of his sayings and actions.
Right, the Sunnah.
Exactly. They continue to guide the faith, the ethics, the laws, the daily lives of, nearly 2 billion people across the globe today. It's a staggering legacy.
It really is. When you analyze the sources together, this theme keeps emerging. A consistent, almost revolutionary effort to institutionalize compassion and fairness.
And that, I think, leaves us with a really important question for you, the listener, to think about. If we look at these core principles, that the sources highlight a legal system demanding equal justice, even for enemies, an economic system with built-in, required contributions for the poor, a political framework that constitutionally protected diverse religious communities. How can those historical models, those ideas about social responsibility that were so radical then, maybe inform our own struggles today? How can they help us in our modern search for a truly just and equitable global society? That seems to be the enduring challenge and perhaps the relevance of his message across the centuries.